Good evening, everyone. So, my topic for the day is doctrine of eclipse and doctrine of severability. So, according to the doctrine of eclipse, a pre constitutional law which has been found to be inconsistent or violating a fundamental right, it was not wiped out altogether from the statute book after the commencement of the Constitution. Why? Because before the Constitution came into force, that particular law in question existed in respect of rights and liabilities of the people then. So, therefore, the law in question will be regarded as having been eclipsed for the time being, or it will be regarded as having been suspended for the time being by the relevant fundamental right. So for the time being, it will be in a dormant or a moribund condition. That is it will be in a kind of some sleep for a particular time being. And such a law will not be considered dead for all purposes. If the relevant fundamental right is amended, then the act might be free from all its defects and the law would no more be considered as unconstitutional and unenforceable. So this doctrine of eclipse, it has been held to apply only to the pre-constitutional laws and not to the post-constitutional laws. And the reason behind this is that a pre-constitutional law was valid when it was enacted, and therefore it was not void ab initio. That is, it was not void from the beginning. It was considered to be void when the constitution came into force. A post-constitutional law, whereas which is infringing a one fundamental right, it is unconstitutional from its very beginning itself. Therefore, it cannot be revived by a subsequent amendment of the constitution, and hence the Supreme Court, it has distinguished between Articles 13 clause 1 and 13 clause 2, as the phraseology of the two are different from each other. So Article 13 clause 2, which applies to the post constitutional laws, it prohibits the making of a law which is infringing the fundamental rights. Whereas when it comes to Article 13 clause 1, which applies to the pre constitutional laws, it contains no such prohibition. Under Article 13 clause 1, the operation of the pre-constitutional law, it remains unaffected until 26 January 1950, that is until the constitution came into force, even if it becomes inoperative after the constitution came into force. So but under Article 13 clause 2, these words that the state shall not make any law itself indicates that after the commencement of the constitution, no law can be made so as to violate a fundamental right, and such a law will be void ab initio, that is from beginning. Therefore, this doctrine of eclipse, it cannot apply to such a law, and it cannot revive even if the relevant fundamental right is amended later to remove the defect which is there in the law. So an act which is declared unconstitutional under Articles 14, under Article 19, and Article 31 clause 2 is revived when it is put in the ninth schedule. So the express words of Article 31b cures the defect in such an act with a retrospective operation from the date it was put on the statute book. So such an act, even though it is inoperative because of its inconsistency with the fundamental right, however, it assumes full force and vigor retrospectively as soon as this is included in the ninth schedule. So it is not necessary to reenact such an act when it is included in the ninth schedule. So from this arises another question, that is, when a post-constitutional law is held inconsistent with a fundamental right, can it be revived by amending the act in question so as to remove the defect, or will it have to be reenacted as a whole? So the Delhi High Court, by majority, the Delhi High Court held that the act will have to be reenacted and it cannot be revived by its mere amendment. So there is no direct Supreme Court case on the specific point. So the nearest authority on the point is the Shamarao case. So what happened in Shamarao case was an act was challenged on the ground of excessive delegation. So the decision, it was kept pending, and the legislature, it passed an amending act seeking to remove the defect. So the Supreme Court ruled by majority that when an act is bad on the ground of excessive delegation, it is void ab initio and it cannot be revived by any kind of amending act. So, therefore, the act held invalid under Article 13 clause 2 could not be revived merely by amending it. It must be reenacted. However, in state of Gujarat versus Shri Ambika Mills, it was held that a post constitutional law which is inconsistent with fundamental rights is not nullity or non existent in all cases and for all purposes. Therefore, doctrine of eclipse is now applicable to both pre constitutional laws as well as the post constitutional laws. Moving on to this doctrine of severability. So, according to Article 13, a law is void only to the extent of the inconsistency or contravention with the relevant fundamental right. So, the above provision, it basically means that an act may not be void as a whole. It's only a part of it which may be void, and if that invalid part can be separated from the valid parts, then the valid parts continue to stand and remain operative. The act will then be read as if the invalid portion was not there at all. But however, if it's not possible to separate the valid portions from the invalid parts, then the whole of the statute will have to go. So the Supreme Court has laid down the following propositions regarding the doctrine of severability. So the first proposition is that the intention of the legislature is the determining factor in determining whether the valid parts of a statute are separable from the invalid parts. So it is very much important and necessary to determine whether the legislature would have enacted the valid parts if it had known that the rest of the statute was invalid. Second provision is that if the valid and invalid portions are mixed up in such a way that they cannot be separated from one another, then the invalidity of a portion must result in the invalidity of the whole act itself. Next provision is that if the valid and invalid portions are so distinct and separate that after striking out the invalid portion, the remaining part can stand independently, and if it's workable, then it will be upheld. That is, the valid portion will be upheld, notwithstanding that the rest had become unenforceable. Next provision, that even when the valid portions are distinct and separate from the invalid portions, but if they all form part of a single scheme, which is supposed to operate as a whole, as one team, then the invalidity of a part will result in the failure of the whole statute. Likewise, though the valid and invalid parts of a statute are independent and they may not form part of a scheme, but what is left after omitting that invalid portion, if that leftover portion is very thin and truncated, then such that it's different from what it was before, such that it's completely changing the meaning of the statute, then also it will be rejected. The statute will be rejected in its entirety. And if after the invalid portion is struck down from the statute and the remaining portion, if it's found to be unenforceable without making any alterations and modifications, then also the whole of it must be struck down as void. And the reason behind this is that a court cannot make alterations or modifications in the law in order to enforce what remains of it after removing its invalid portion. Otherwise, it would amount to judicial legislation. And the last provision is that the severability of the valid as well as the invalid portions of a statute, it does not depend on whether the provisions are enacted in the same section or different section. So that was about doctrine of severability. Thank you.